For several years now in the United States, there has been a law on the books that almost no one has heard of. That law says that if you owe the IRS too much in taxes, they can take your passport away. I'm going to tell you how it works and what you need to know in this video. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you want to learn how Nomad Capitalist helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally reduce their taxes, find safe havens around the world, and go where they're treated best, learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And what we're going to talk about today is a new law in the United States that allows them to take away your passport and ground you, not only from traveling, but from doing a lot of other things that we talk about, internationalization tactics that we talk about here at Nomad Capitalist. Now, there's a link in the description of this video to a article that we wrote about this, so I'm not going to go into every little caveat and bullet point in this video. You can click and read the article for all the specifics. But here's the basic deal. A couple years ago, President Obama was passing what's called the FAST Act, I believe for like a transportation or infrastructure bill. And as they often do in the US Congress, they said, you know what, let's jam in something totally unrelated. And that something totally unrelated was a provision that says if you have more than $50,000 in what's called seriously delinquent tax debt, the IRS can inform the State Department through a process called certification that you should no longer be entitled to a passport, and the State Department will either cancel your existing passport, not renew your existing passport, or refuse to issue you a new passport. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen and you're located in the United States, this will effectively ground you because if you're leaving the United States, I mean, where's your United States passport? You need that to leave, okay? Even if you have a second passport, you need the U.S. passport to leave. And so if you're outside of the United States, obviously it would ground you in a certain place unless you had a second passport, okay? The provision basically works that if your tax debt has gone unpaid to the point where the IRS can file a tax lien against you, then this will qualify. Now, tax liens aren't as difficult as people think that they are. And so you might think $50,000 is a lot of money. Now, it's a much higher bar than the $2,500 bar that you have to pass in back child support. So if you have child support and you're very late at all, you ain't getting a passport. The tax bill, obviously $50,000, not so bad. What I tell folks, because we talk to the 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs, it doesn't take that much to get to 50 grand when you figure out, number one, interest and penalties. But also, I had a little issue a number of years ago that was an oversight on the part of the California Franchise Tax Board, the most aggressive tax authority on earth. I lived there for 6 or 7 months. I filed one tax return, so this is my final tax return. Here's your money, sayonara. And they kept not only chasing me for more tax, we were able to fend that off pretty easily. It says final, guys. But also, they kept saying, oh, you never paid us. I had to spend so much time on hold after they levied my bank account for $1,200. So much time on hold to say, guys, here's the canceled check. You already got your $1,200. And they finally released the money back. Now, back at that point, I was a much smaller level entrepreneur than I am today, and it's easy to see how certain things could compile. It could become 50 grand if you're doing a certain level of business. As we know, sometimes the tax authority will even, if they don't get a tax return from you, they will even create a tax return, and they'll estimate your tax liability much higher than it should be. And if we know anything about tax authorities, it's that a lot of times they lose paperwork. I've seen it happen before. People send it in, they've got the little receipt and says it was sent. The taxman never gets it. And so it's possible that some sort of circumstances would allow this to happen. Now, I'm not trying to create, a doomsday scenario. Obviously, you want to be on top of your taxes if you live in the United States, but the bottom line is they have created a process where they could effectively ground you. Now, this does not apply to folks who are dealing in the process of creating an offer in compromise or innocent spouses, or if you have a payment plan and you're complying with it, nor does it apply to state taxes. This is a federal IRS issue. But consider the fact that you don't have to be a criminal. You don't have to be convicted of anything. They just have to say, hey, this guy owes us money. It hasn't been paid. We're deeming it seriously delinquent. And they just send it over to the State Department. Now you're out of luck. And so what does that mean? not only can you not travel on that U.S. passport and potentially out of the United States, it also means that if you have a bank account overseas and you need to update your passport, let's say your passport's about to expire and you need to update them with a new passport, you may not be able to get them the ID that they need. They may close your offshore bank account. That offshore bank account could have the money that you need to defend yourself in case there is a dispute with the tax authority, the way that I had a legitimate dispute and ended up winning very quickly once the facts were presented. So you may not be able to open other accounts, offshore bank accounts, offshore brokerage accounts. You may not be able to go and get other passports. Now, let me make my position clear as the goody two-shoes of the offshore industry listen, if you live in the United States, the taxes are high. Pay your taxes. Do I think the tax rates are fair? Of course not. Do I think it's a good value? No. I voted with my feet. We help people here, including Americans at Nomad Capitalist, legally reduce their taxes by going offshore, and there are strategies that you can do to do that. The challenge that does challenge me here is that the United States is the only country that effectively taxes all of its citizens around the world to some extent, or at least makes you file the paperwork. And since there's so much paperwork, even those of us who live overseas, I'm no longer a U.S. citizen, but those of us who were U.S. citizens or are U.S. citizens living overseas, if you miss one form, a penalty or some kind of fine could be what triggers the issue. And so simply leaving the United States isn't enough to get you out of the tax net and to say, okay, well, now I don't have to worry about that. If you're a U.S. citizen, this is always a concern of yours. And so again, if you're doing business at a high level, that $50,000 may be easier than you think to achieve. Obviously, I always support tax compliance. If you have a tax obligation, you should pay it. I'm not about hiding money. I'm not about pulling tricks and schemes. I am about finding ways to distance yourself from a country that has become very difficult, including people who live overseas, which has some of the highest tax rates in the world, and which just is generally unpleasant to deal with. But this is something that you have to keep in mind. If you're dealing with the IRS, you have to pay your bill, or else you may be left stranded. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.